Hey guys, I've been to hundreds of networking events for work, but never had I ever gone to a networking event that was 100% focused solely on my personal growth and my personal development. And the one time I did, which was August of 2023, just 7 months later, I found myself taking the biggest leap of faith to leave a wonderful corporate job for the unknown. Yeah, it sounds crazy because it is. Well, fast forward, and I'm so excited to report back from my second annual Powerhouse Women's event hosted by Lindsey Schwartz. Sit back and enjoy the play-by-play of my Powerhouse Girls Weekend in Scottsdale. So, chances are that if you're tuning into this bonus episode, it's because you were either at the event or you're interested in what these type of personal development events can really be like, and or maybe you're just super curious what had about 800 women strutting their powerhouse selves at this event. Whatever the reason, I love that you're here today and I cannot wait to give you the play-by-play of the weekend. I actually want to start though with the big takeaways, and then I'll jump into kind of the events. So, some of this came from the speakers, some of this came from my fellow powerhouse women that I got to create connections with, and some of this is just kind of my own interpretation of stuff. So, top five key takeaways. The first one is the importance of alignment with your assignment. And thank you, Jamie Kern Lima, for putting this so delicately. Jamie Kern Lima, she took the stage. She was definitely the headliner for the event. And she just has this miraculous story. If you haven't heard of her before, she's got a book out. It's called Worthy. She is phenomenal. She got the biggest, largest cosmetic deal, I think, in history at that point in time. She sold her company for something like $1.3 billion to L'Oreal. But really, she spent most of the event, most of her keynote talking about what it took to get to that point. And she knew her numbers. And I think that that was one of my favorite things about her. She knew, for instance, that it took her 3 years of going all in on this dream, 3 years of people telling her no. And I'm telling you guys, like, if you hear her story, it's not just, hey, no, thank you, have a nice day. No, these are brutal no's, like, cutting her body image down. And she just, the way that she's so she just pushed forward in it. And I love too, one of her, so right when she finally gets a yes after 3 years of putting everything she has into it, the yes wasn't the greatest deal. It was a consignment deal with QVC where she basically had to produce enough product to bring with her to her 10-minute slot on QVC. She said her and her husband went to, I think it was like there were 22 banks that said no before she was able to get the small business loan that actually allowed her to create the product, get her and her hubby to QVC for the recording. She has the recording. She sells out of her product, like crying, yes, yes, finally. And then very shortly after, she got the L'Oreal deal. And it was just wonderful. So I loved her. I loved the rawness that she brought to the stage. I love the story of resilience just over and over and over again. And I'm just so grateful that she took the time to share. So, alignment with your assignment, what that is just she knew in her gut what she was pressing forward with. She knew in her gut that every time somebody said no, it didn't detour her. She was in alignment with her God-given assignment, and she was going to show up for that. And she did. And she's beautiful inside and out. So that was the first one. The second one was this story. So I guess the takeaway is just to get wise when it comes to investors. I think to some degree, maybe I knew that it was possible, but when Mary Seats, and she's with Cupcake Mafia, or she has the icing agency, it's a marketing agency. She was sharing her story about how she's printing small t-shirts. All of a sudden she gets this deal with Forever 21. Well, that means she actually has to produce the product. So at this point now she needs investors to help her do that. And just the way that investors made her feel so small. because she was still working through what her worth really was. And she signed a deal. Well, unbeknownst to her, the fine print read that basically if enough members of the board wanted to vote her out, they could. And so it was shortly after all these investors like invest in her organization, she's literally fired from her own company. And I don't know, there was something about when she was sharing that story, I just felt like that was so meant for me, like a future version of me, just saying that, hey, be careful, like read the fine print, keep tight on your negotiations. And I'm just so grateful that she offered that up. Also, too, just loved her perspective on things, like that God gave her practice. I just loved the way that she looked at that hard lesson, and then the way that she continued to show up. I mean, she tells her story about she's living above her small little retail shop for 6 months, like crying every day. She doesn't know how she's going to do it. And she just showed up and she pulled through it. And oh, it was so inspiring. So that was a good one, too. The third one was like manage your money and your wealth. And managing money and wealth, for some reason, it can be so intimidating. I know most of my friends and I, we always joke. We're like, man, how awesome would it have been in school if they would have taught us like how to invest in this or that? But it's just not a life skill that a lot of folks know unless they actively seek it out. And so there were a couple different folks. Patrice Washington, she was one of the speakers who specifically talked about like managing your wealth. There was Natalie Hill, kind of manage what had happened in her business. The owner, Jen, the owner of Kin Euphorics, which is like a non-alcoholic cocktail, basically that's good for you. A few of them mentioned this whole idea, just the importance of managing your money. It may be scary, but it's absolutely necessary, and put in the work to become a money master. So this is something I've been always super curious about. And there's areas where I know I have big blind spots. So a personal commitment that I'm walking away, I'm going to implement what I'm going to refer to just as my own like money Mondays, where I'm going to take at least an hour. I'm going to schedule it an hour every single Monday where I'm either listening to a money podcast or I'm reading a money blog or I'm playing around with my investments. So money Monday, that's something I'm going to implement just based on how inspired I was by these women and the way that they were talking about their wealth and their finances. Another key takeaway is, and this actually might be my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think so. Yeah, just the power of somebody else believing in you and how that ripple effect, it can move mountains. It just was a reminder that I want to gift that genuinely to others, and just to pay attention to how fortunate I am to have so many people already in my corner cheering me on. And I just know that it's been the game changer for me. It's allowed me to take risks that I don't know if I would have ever believed I had the strength to take on my own. What I know, that's popped up, this whole like theme of having support, whether it is in a spouse or a friend or a community, but this whole idea of having support, um, it was a game changer for me along my journey, and I know it's going to continue to be. So overall experience, just the power of being willing to get vulnerable and show up authentically. Like every conversation I had such a rawness to it. Tears were everywhere because there was so much like loving and like challenging like conversations being had. And for those incredible women who I ended up at the dinner table with and then also enjoying coffees with, like those were magical moments that I know were divinely crafted for us. And I'm so proud of all of us. Okay, so now walking you through the play for anyone who's kind of interested in what goes down at these type of events. And again, this is from my point of view. So I'll tell you, I had a grand old time. We got to Scottsdale from Denver on Friday. I went with 3 other beautiful girlfriends, just all on the same page for personal growth. We went up to the resort spa. We had a beautiful lunch, and then we hit the pool. And it was on our way to the pool where the whole like powerhouse vibe really started. I mean, from our room to the pool, we see these three women who are unloading suitcases. And one of them right away is like, "Are you guys here for Powerhouse?" And of course, we're like, "Yes, yes, yes." And so just the energy immediately was just electrifying. We exchange Instagram handles, say, hey, we'll meet up later. They invite us to the pool later on. That's where they're gonna be. And it was just good. Then we get to the pool. And oh my gosh, I am not even in this pool area for 5 minutes before across the pool, I hear this very recognizable voice. Brittany, and immediately I knew it was my Riley. I just felt so seen and so special in our energy. And I'm telling you guys, like when we collide, so Riley was someone who I only met last year at Powerhouse. And I bet over the last year, just between some DMs or between some like breakout groups that we've done, we've probably connected maybe 10 times, but it's always so raw and so genuine. And when the two of us collided in this pool, it was like the atomic bomb of goodness and joy and all the things that immediately went off. And I love that just created a space for so many other women to be pulled into that energy. And that's exactly what happened. So just women were coming into the pool, to the side of the pool. Everyone's like, "Oh, what's your story? What's your story?" It's where I got to first meet such beautiful souls like Julia, Melissa, Shannon, Nina, Miss Fabuloso herself, Peggy and her daughter and their grandbaby that they brought. And just like so many folks in such a short amount of time. And although I have lots of favorite stories, even just from the 3-4 hours that we were at the pool, I would say some of my favorite was meeting Peggy. We were sharing stories, and she looks at me and her eyes are swelling up. And she is like, "I can't believe I'm going to do this. I can't believe I'm going to do this." And I'm like, "Whoa, what's happening?" And she takes off a bracelet. She had 2 bracelets on. She takes off one of the bracelets and she was like, I brought 2 bracelets with me. I was going to give one to someone who really made an impact on me. And I can't believe this is the only first couple hours. The event is tomorrow. Like, you're not supposed to give it to someone on the first day. And she was so moved by my story, and I was so moved by our connection, and she gifted me this beautiful bracelet. And so I cherish that, and I love it. I love it. Another one was just how many women came to the event by themselves and just jumped right into it. And that courage that it takes to do that. Meeting Julia for the first time. She's about to take flight. In fact, our little nickname became Maverick and Goose. And no one will ever know who's Maverick and no one will never know who's Goose. It's just Maverick Goose, because there was that connection. Like, we're going to lock arms, and whatever the heck she's doing, whatever the heck I'm doing, like, it's, again, connections, you almost, it's so tough to put words to. And Melissa too. Melissa, you were one of my favorites. Just the confidence that's soaring out of these women, again, who are willing to come to these events by themselves, without expectations. I do think that that's really important. Coming just so open to whatever is in store for the weekend, and both, I mean, so many of these women embodied that. Okay, so then we wrap up at the pool. Oh geez Louise, I'm not going to go too crazy into this one, but again, this is real life for me. We wrap up at the pool. We decide we're going to go out to grab something to eat. And guys, I don't know if I ate something bad, drank something bad, but I will tell you, it got rough really fast. I went back to the hotel room. I'm like violently getting ill, so much so that I pass out. And oh, wait, it gets better. I pass out. And when I pass out, I hit my shoulder on the shower door. I must have knocked my head and my jaw and my nose on like the ledge of the shower. I busted my face. So it is Friday night. We've got the event tomorrow. I bust my face open real good, wake up in a puddle of my own blood from my nose. And all I can try to do is get myself into bed with some water and a Shackley bar, and I fall asleep with ice on my busted face. I swear to God, this is real. Then no, I did not have too much to drink. I would say if that was the case, I'm telling you, there was something that dropped into my belly that was not good. So I wake up the next morning. The only thought I have is like, number one, my face hurts so freaking bad. And number two, I'm here for a reason. I like refuse to not show up. So I get up, I do my morning walk. I go to the top of the resort where I get to watch the sunrise in the desert. And the desert's waking up, and talk to my hubby to kind of help recenter myself and to get back into that rally mode so I could take full advantage of the event. We get dressed. I toss as much foundation over my face as I possibly can to cover up the bruising that's already starting to come through. And then PS, I just rocked the fact that my nose was about 4 times the regular size. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, so now we're Saturday morning. We actually get into the event. And you've got vendors just set up all across the back. You had Lori Harder's Get Glossy on the back wall. You had white permanent jewelry and tattoos, and then some swag clothing, which is like power phrases on them. The first hour and a half of being there is really just about networking. Everybody's like taking pictures, or they're saying, oh, your outfits are so cute. Your outfits are so cute. And then conversations are just happening. So a lot of times conversations were things like, hey, what's your business? Or hey, what brings you to Powerhouse? Or hey, is this your first one? Look at me like giving you guys all of these like word tracks on how to network. And conversations just take from there. So there is where I met wonderful people like Kenzie, who does somatic breath work, Haley, who has the Passion Pursuit podcast. Like definitely go take a listen to that. Aaron, who's got like several pottery shops. So you just hear about all of these different things. And it's so wonderful and it's so unique. And then one of my favorite things that I guess I started asking people was that, like, what's one thing that your business needs most right now? And the way that those conversations, where they led to, it was good. So then the event starts. You've got Patty Tapia and Priscilla Perez, who are like dancing, getting everybody else up on their feet. So everybody's like vibing, feeling good, moving that body. Lindsey Schwartz comes out. She's just boldly with her humor. Like you can't help but relate to so many things that she's saying. And she's just doing such a phenomenal job of, especially in the first few minutes. I mean, she knows that her goal there is to kind of cut any barriers that people maybe have, or like to open up hearts and minds, and just to let everybody know that we're all in the same spot, that we all have the same fears. She did this exercise just with some envelopes that were anonymous, and you just got to see very quickly how many people, for instance, have almost given up on their dreams over the last year, or how many people have experienced financial hardship over the last year, or how many people have struggled with depression or mental health or anxiety over the last year. Or even one of my favorite and most impactful was like how many people believed that in a room full of powerhouse women, like we were all standing in, how many people truly believed that maybe they didn't belong in the room. So just like things like that, like exercises that were just, again, so vulnerable. They were meant to kind of open you up so that you could really get into this space where you could just be poured into for the rest of the day. And then that's exactly what all the speakers did. They just poured into us. So there were panel interviews. So you're sitting in your seats. You don't really have to engage. Once the event starts, you don't necessarily you're not engaging or networking necessarily. You're just allowing yourself to be poured into from the stage. All the speakers did a phenomenal job. What else? I know I'm kind of rambling here. Then you go to lunch. Lunch is definitely you have flashbacks to the elementary school cafeteria where you grab your lunch and then there's a whole bunch of open tables and you're like, oh my God, who am I going to sit with? And that kind of like pit in your stomach and awful, but you make it happen. We sat down at the table exactly where we were supposed to. Ended up meeting some beautiful women. Spent lunch with them, just talking again about their businesses and possibilities and their big dreams, and just the amount of support and connection that is built in a 45-minute lunch is so beautiful when you're in the right rooms with the right people in the right community. And then the rest of the day was, again, more speakers, a little bit more networking kind of at the end, just as everybody was wrapping up. honestly, you get to the end of the day and you you're dog tired. I mean, you've been on emotional roller coasters. You're riding the roller coaster with the speakers. You're feeling some of the hardships that they have felt, and you're like, oh man, I'm so in that right now. But you're also feeling really hopeful because if they can get through it, that means somebody has paved a way and that you can get through it too. And that's a beautiful reminder. And again, like ripple effect of impact that just goes throughout the room. And so then at the end of the day, I mean, dog tired, we hit the restaurant that was in the hotel and we're sitting there. And originally it starts with there were two of us sitting at the table. And then before you know it, there were three, there were four, there were five of us, there were six of us, there were 10 of us at this table, just because, again, the magnetic energy. And I believe that. And it was wonderful. And just the way that we got to continue to laugh and absorb and take in the day with these new relationships. Went to bed, not too crazy. I mean, it was maybe 10, maybe 11 at the latest, I think. And then the next morning, woke up, did my nice little walk again. Sunday morning, I think the adrenaline, probably the concussion, like it hit me. My face was so bad, so black and blue. But that was okay. That was okay. I had made it through the event. I had rallied. Sunday was my day to just chill. And that's what we did. So we went and got coffee. Again, the coffee, we're sitting at the table on the back patio. It starts with two, starts with three, then four, then five, and six. And next thing you know, we're sitting there for hours just talking to, again, hearing these beautiful stories of women and where they're at with their business and what they need and how we can all help each other. And then we went to the pool for a couple hours, and then we were going to go to another hotel for Sunday night. So we hop, skipped, and jumped over to that hotel. I had another just phenomenal experience. I do kind of feel like I'm rambling here a little bit. But we were walking through Old Town Scottsdale, and my girlfriend who I was with, Jess, she sees this boutique and it's like screaming Western fashion style. I mean, it says her all over it. And so we walk in, and that is where I met the one and the only and the beautiful soul, Miss Asme. Asme. Uh-huh. And she is the owner, and she's at first she's a little pushy, okay, in all the right ways, oh, that dress would look so good on you. Oh, you should get that. Oh, I'll put it on sale for you. And you're like, okay, lady. All right, I know what you're doing. It's working, but I know what you're doing. And again, for the sake of fast forwarding, I will tell you what ends up happening in that shop that day. We spent hours there laughing, having the most incredible, energetic, magnetic time with her. And it was like something out of a movie where she's like throwing clothes into the dressing room. We're like, we're not buying any of this. And she's like, I know, but you're gonna look so great. And so we're just trying things on. She had made a comment about how, and this is a vulnerable moment here, so you're welcome, how the dress that I walked in, she felt it was a grandma dress. Ouch. And she felt that the length on it was a grandma dress. So that I was rocking great cleavage was her feedback. However, the length was grandma-ish. And so I kind of come at her and we're like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And she's like, I'm going to cut the dress. I'm like, you're going to cut the dress. She's like, cut the dress. I was like, go for it. Cut the dress. She's like, you really want me to cut the dress? I'm like, cut the dress. She's like, oh, okay, I'll cut the dress. I was like, here. I throw it out. Like at this point, I'm in the changing room. I throw her the dress. I'm like, cut the dress. I didn't know if she was actually going to do it or not. She cuts the dress, and it was amazing. Like what she did for me that day in the store was incredible. I had previously, like one of the things that I was working through was just a lot of the work that I've done. I haven't been one to invest in like my wardrobe. I'm really all about, I just want it to be functional. That's really all I care about. So most of my wardrobe is full of t-shirts and jeans. Like that's my jam. And then I've got the other half of my wardrobe that is all business attire. And I love my business, and I love my t-shirts, and I love my jeans, but I have been feeling, and I didn't quite realize it until this moment, like I had been feeling some conflict, like my outer appearance wasn't actually reflecting the inner work that this inner person and version of me that I had been transforming into over the last year. And so when I saw the cut dress, it was so beautiful. I still wore it out of the store and everything. When she had taken the bottom off, like she had taken 2 or 3 inches off, for gosh sakes. I didn't realize it was that long, I guess. um, when I saw the 2, 3 inches, I started bawling. And it was so crazy how these moments happen in our life where it can just be like shackles coming off of like an old identity and limiting beliefs about the way that I look or the way that I show up in the world. And it was beautiful, and it's a gift. I don't think anybody else could have given me. She was absolutely made for me that day. The next thing you know, we're walking out. Of course, we did spend a little bit money. I mean, how could we not? We got really cute things. Couldn't say no, and I looked fabulous in them, so it just made sense. But she was also one of the highlights of my weekend. So we called it an early night on Sunday after that shopping extravaganza. And then Monday we were on flights. So that was that. Again, there's so many people who just moved me this weekend. And that is absolutely what happens when you get into rooms with people all passionately pursuing growth. And I think that most of us were running so fast on that hamster wheel that we don't even realize that we're just treading water in survival mode. And I think it makes me think back to kind of my wake up call about 2 years ago. So my wake up call wasn't the result of a tragedy or a negative circumstance, but that I got to choose with full authority the direction and the new path I wanted to set myself on. And so my advice would be that if you're stuck, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're too drained at the end of the day to be able to happily and energetically pour into your loved ones in the evening, if you're done living one groundhog day after another, like it's probably time to do something a little maybe what feels like selfish and to focus on your personal growth and your personal development. And for God's sakes, it doesn't mean that you have to quit your day job just to like rebalance and find some peace. But it does, however, like it does mean that you have to make a decision that you don't want this anymore and that you want something else. And then you have to take action for that. And so, what would a life of balance and abundance and freedom and like the most outward, brilliant, beautiful version of you, what would that look like? And how are you passionately pursuing that growth for yourself? And hey, maybe if you don't know where to start or what's next, like I would love to join you in your brainstorming. Just send me a message, get in touch with me on Instagram. I'm on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts too, Facebook. I mean, there's ways to find me. Go to my website, brittanytalenti.com. Like, I would love to be the person to brainstorm with you on what's next. Let's activate and then build a plan to implement. So I've got my formal coaching programs. I've also got the podcast for you. I will be releasing a book later this year, which is crazy to think about. Crazy. I left my corporate job, guys, back in April. What? Bonkers. Like, God is so good. So for me, it started a while ago going to kind of having my moment where I felt so called to do something else. And then I love that Powerhouse got to be a part of that about a year ago. I continue to invest myself like in coaching, and I'll continue to passionately pursue my own growth too. So let's just do it together. Thanks for listening. It was an amazing weekend and I'm so grateful and just love having you here. Thanks for letting me share. All right. Bye.